besties, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Cayenne and this is Cayenne is Booked. Today we are going to be talking about all the books that I read in February, and I do this every month, don't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I've read 16 books, and you know what? For as busy as I was and how many classes I'm currently taking, and just life, and also being able to sleep, I'll take it. It's a solid number. We're going to start off with my in-depth read-along. So if you're new here, I am a huge fan of J.D. Robb, aka Nora Roberts. That's her pen name. Her series that follows Eve and Dallas. No, Eve and Rorik. And it's called the In-Depth series, and she's hit like book 60, 61. I don't know. She's in the 60s now. And I'm doing a whole re-listen because I'm doing a favorites by every 10 years because she usually releases 2 books a year. So I picked my favorite of the year, and I'm about to film the second one. So I just kind of kept going. There's something very comforting about this series to me and kind of being with these characters, and I needed some comfort this month. So it was really nice to be with them. So I only read 4, which is pretty solid. Like, I'll take it. The first book is going to be Brotherhood in Death. And oh, that's right. So Dennis Mira is Dr. Mira's husband, and he ends up in a situation where his cousin is killed. Like, they're all on the will for his grandparents, and they've been arguing about whether or not they're going to keep the house in the family. And then all of a sudden, like, he's assaulted, and Mira obviously calls Eve. Eve ends up finding the dead body of the cousin, and it turns into this whole like witch hunt, like, for his killer, because he knows that they know that he was murdered. And so Eve ends up primary on the case because of her relationship with Dr. Mira, and then obviously Dennis Mira, who are kind of like in this series stand-in parents for Eve because she didn't have great parents. And I really just loved the camaraderie of this book and just how, Eve shows up time and time again for people that she considers family. It's something that I think is like so beautiful about the relationship that the two of them have. And I just love the fact that even if she doesn't know the victim, like, she's always willing to stand up and like be the voice for those people, because at the end of the day, like, they're hers now. And there's just something like very like beautiful about that, even though this series, like, you literally have to die to be Eve's. So I gave Brotherhood in Death 5 stars. I actually have a really good run of 5 stars in this series, so it's gonna be very interesting to see, like, when I get to these years, how do I pick a favorite? Next up is Apprentice in Death, and this follows the story of a former NYPSD officer who was a sniper, and his daughter, who have gone on this like vigilante streak, and she's the apprentice in death. And they have this plan because his wife was unfortunately struck by a car. It was deemed not an accident. He felt like that was absolutely incorrect, and this is absolutely uncalled for. Like, people let him down, and then so he starts to go after the people who like ended up letting him down, or like how he views, right? But he has a very skewed idea of what that looks like, and a very skewed idea of justice in this incident that is really just an accident, a horrific accident, a very sad accident, but an accident nonetheless. I gave this one 5 stars because I found it so incredibly interesting watching Eve go up, like, she's 15, I believe, watching Eve go up against a 15-year-old who is a psychopath, and watching her navigate being respectful of a former NYPSD officer who obviously allowed the drugs and the booze to take a good portion of his memory and in his grief, and what that kind of looked like for everybody who was working the case, because the group that helped, like, obviously bring him in was his former unit, because they had to have snipers because they were sniper attacks. So I really liked this one. I really enjoyed visiting it again as well, because it was one of the more fresher stories in my mind, but I also still didn't remember a lot of the nuances. So it was really interesting to listen to this again and kind of get that viewpoint of, like, how Eve and Peabody really got to the nitty gritty of why they did it and how they did it. And then we have Echoes in Death, which 5 stars. Woo! Yeah, so this starts off with Daphne Straza, and she is walking naked in the street, and even work actually almost hit her, and they follow her to the hospital, and what do you call it? And, you know, she's mumbling about this monster or whatever, and they show up to her house and find her husband dead. And it is this whole string of murders of this guy who like dresses up as a monster and goes after people who he is perceived has wronged him. And he has this like whole map of people and like very specific targets and like a very specific like list of people that he's going to be going after. And the only thing that any of these women can say is like he was dressed as a monster, and he like literally showed up like one time as like the devil to one of these. But Daphne and Straza, it's the first time that it's escalated to murder, and it's watching Eve kind of go through like the minutia and digging through everything that they possibly can dig through, to make sure that she's able to avenge these women, and then obviously like care for Daphne and Straza. We don't necessarily love the dead husband, and you'll find out why if you choose to read this book. But we do get a very interesting like case, and the idea of like what does the devil look like, and like how does he show up, and why is the devil after these specific people. So it was so interesting. And I always love how Eve, even if she doesn't necessarily love her victim or even like her victim, she's always willing to go the extra mile for them. And then we have Secrets in Death. And I give this one 4 stars, and I will stand by my 4-star rating. So this is about Lorenda Mars, and essentially she's like on the gossip beat. She works with Nadine First, who is a reoccurring character in the series, and she is at a bar at the same time as De Winter and Ivar. They're grabbing a drink, and then all of a sudden this lady is like falling to the ground, bleeding out, and she dies in seconds, right? But lo and behold, this lady is actually a blackmailer. And we get into this like really intricate web of all these people that she's wronged, these celebrities, these like congressmen, these politicians, like all these people have like a lot of power, right? And she's amassed an insane fortune that we find in her safes and like on her safety deposit boxes and like spread them out. And it really is just, she's addicted to the feeling of being able to blackmail, not necessarily the amount of money that she was making from doing it. So it was a really interesting concept, and I really enjoyed it. But when I put it up against like the 3 that I had read previously, it doesn't necessarily like beat those out and like really land on a 5-star for me personally. So bear with me, because I'm about to take a picture. Ooh, let me fix my hair right here. Oh. Perfect. Hopefully that got through, and that'll be my thumbnail. So those are the 4 in-depth books I read. Next up, I finished out the Monster Trilogy by Rena Kent, Heart of My Monster. Definitely gave it 5 stars. This is book 3. There we go. 5 stars. This is book 3 in the Monster Trilogy. I've talked a lot about it. I can't tell you how it ends. She's a genius. He doesn't beat out Adrian for me, but my goodness, is he close. So, all the appreciation, his vlog, Kiriel's vlog, and Sasha's vlog will actually be going up sometime this week as well. So be sure to be on the lookout. And if I remember, I'll definitely drop it link down below so that you can go and enjoy it if you too are on a Rena Kent binge. I highly recommend it. Next up, I read The Brazen by Daphne Perry. This is part of her Calamity Montana series, and this follows Carrington and Pierce, and Pierce's grandfather was Carrington's investor in all of her properties in Calamity, Montana, and he suddenly dies, and she is left with paying off like the $250,000 loan to Pierce because he is unwilling to listen to anything that she has to say because he believes that she was having an affair with his grandfather. So anyways, I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I really haven't read a Daphne Perry that I haven't been, haven't enjoyed, haven't been enthralled by. The problem is then I read The Bully, gave this one 5 stars. I couldn't very well give The Brazen 5 stars because I read these back to back, and The Bully was, I don't know what I was going through at the time. I don't know if like it just hit harder in a different like maybe it's like I'm emotionally kind of where Cal is, and I'm kind of also emotionally where Nellie is right now. But there were parts of this book that made me cry. I just felt so in tune with how Cal felt about himself and how he struggled with his self-image, even though he's like this hotshot, like former NFL quarterback, extremely successful, won multiple Super Bowls, and has moved to Calamity to like slow life down and live with his best friend Pierce. And you know, he's perceived a certain way, and he's perceived as an a-hole, and he's always leaned into that image. But something about Nellie believing that about him is hurting him in a way that he can't express. And I got it. Like, I got his pain. I got the feeling of like he just didn't feel good enough, and like it's hard for him because he's going through a life change, and you know, he's cared for Nellie for such a long time, and it's so hard because he wants to love her, but he doesn't feel like he deserves her. And Nellie isn't sure that she can believe anything that he says because they've always had such a contentious relationship. And I thought it was really beautiful how they both showed up for each other in the end, and how they were finally able to trust their feelings. And like, oh man, the stuff that he says, like during the scenes where they're talking to each other and like they're not pretending and like they're being vulnerable, is like, I identify with a lot of stuff, and there was just something about this that had me in a chokehold, and it's 5 stars for me. Like I honestly have thought about this book multiple times, and I've thought about going back and listening to it and wondering if I would still be in the same mental headspace when I listened to it. But I enjoyed it. I thought it's one of my favorite enemies to lovers so far this year. And yeah, I just hadn't had a chance to pick it up. I highly recommend it. Then I read The Villa by Nora Roberts, and this was the Nora Roberts book club read along that Jess does over on Peace Love Books, her Patreon. And this one was really interesting because it was a tale of this like family, and they've been in the wine business for like over 100 years, and like the grandchildren, not by birth, so it's like a second marriage grandchildren situation, have always felt like they've been enemies because like they're both looking to take over different aspects of the business, but still be a part of the family business in general. Like they've devoted their entire lives, right? And there's always been this rivalry between the two of them, but also like a level of attraction as well, because they've known each other since they're teenagers, and they've grown up in the vineyards together, and then they're put in direct competition because the grandma's she's like that. Okay, so I really enjoyed it. There are portions in here, I gave it 4 stars. There are portions in here when she talks a lot about like the vineyards and like how they make wine and stuff, and I'm like, that's cool and all, but like, are they ever gonna get together? Like, are we ever on page? Like, what's going on here? Like, cool that we smashed the grapes for the wine, but when are they gonna smash, right? But very typical Nora Roberts. This was written in, I believe it was written in 2000. Side of my tongue hurts. I believe this was written in 2000, if I remember. 2001. So it was written in 2001, so it's very much like for the times and all of that kind of stuff, but I still enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. I know a lot of people will say like they were kind of over it, but I love family drama, and I love family drama that's not my family drama. So next up, I read my first ever A.L. Jackson. So all of the ads and seeing everybody post about it finally got me. So I read From Here to Eternity. I love like the male female covers of the series. Again, the discreet covers are great, but there are just something about like, I don't know, I just love them. So this is, she has a very extensive backlist that I found out. So this is the Moonlit Ridge series, and this follows, oh my God, did I write it down? I didn't. Who is she? River and Charlie. So she comes into his tattoo shop. It's the first tattoo she's ever had. He can tell she's kind of skittish. She can tell she's kind of nervous. And she comes in and she goes, I want this very specific tattoo. And I don't want to, and I know it's like in the first couple chapters, but I don't want to like be mean and like spoil it because I think it's a very significant portion of the book. And he was actually tattooing one of his friends from the Redemption Hills series. So I'm going back and reading that as well. But anyways, so like reading this one, River's gonna tattoo Charlie, And then she kind of just like skirts out, right? But she's really pretty and he really kind of likes her and, right? So then Charlie actually ends up being best friends with River's sister, right? And we'll see her, I'll talk about her in a second because she's the second book that I read. And, you know, they kind of start to spend some time together and River's like, oh, yikes, I might actually like this girl, right? But he made a promise to his brothers because they are a part of a secret society that basically has dedicated themselves once they got out of like the real motorcycle club business and they stepped out or whatever. They created this sanctuary where they get members, you know, people who have been part of domestic violence situations out of those situations, a new identity, and set up somewhere else so they can start a new life. And they knew that they couldn't do it if they were attached to loved ones because that's more people who know about kind of what's going on and like more risk, right? But River starts to fall for her and he can't hold it back anymore and he's obsessed with her. And this is the love story of how like they both kind of like piece each other back together. And the story of, and he's a single parent, and the story of kind of how this family comes together. And I think it's really beautiful and I gave it 4 stars. And I was super, super excited to get the next book in the series. I really feel like this is one that's just gonna like overall build for me. And I'll talk about the next one and I'll talk about what I was about to say at that point, but I absolutely enjoyed the story. I highly recommend it. It's a really great introduction to A.L. Jackson because there's only 2 books in the series and you can read them without reading the other ones, but I didn't understand the significance of the characters who came and like hung out from the other series. So like I'm kind of excited to go back and, you know, see how they all know each other. So really enjoyed this one. And then, okay, cool. So the next one we're going to talk about is Under an Endless Moon. And this follows Raven and Otto. So Otto is best friends with River and Raven is River's younger sister. And River got Raven out because like her dad was his stepdad was incredibly abusive to her, and he got her out and they were living on the streets, and then they met Otto, and then that's why they joined the motorcycle club because like they were all trying to survive for their own reasons. Like all of them were on the streets. There's 5 of them. All of them on the streets for a specific reason. Raven's always been a part of the group, and it wasn't until she was like 17 or 18 that she really started to have a crush on Otto. But the problem is Otto promised River that nothing was ever going to happen between the 2 of them. But the issue is Otto's been pretty much in love with his sister for pretty much forever. And it's gotten like really hard for him to pretend like he isn't, because like the more she grows up and the more, you know, like they're full-fledged adults now, and they've always had like a very, I don't want to say interesting connection, but they've always had some level of a connection with each other. And it's always been very difficult for Otto to pretend like he would be okay with somebody else marrying her. And yeah, I was even more obsessed with this one than I was with River and Charlie. Like there was just really something about like the brother's best friend, forced proximity, forbidden aspect, like touch her and die vibes. Like Otto had it all. And like I was in love with him. And even he went away for a little bit and he came back. He went away for a little bit and he came back, and like even then like the connection was like really strong between the 2 of them. But the problem is he had already made that promise to River. And you know what? That was tough. So that's that. Then I read Heartless Hunter. I gave this one 4 stars. I really liked the rebel witch situation, the in hiding, the falling for the man that she shouldn't fall for. I didn't really like the love triangle, which is why I knocked it down from 5 stars to 4, because like I felt like the love triangle was just forced and she was just settling, even though we knew who she truly wanted to be with, and that she wouldn't choose the person that was the other portion of the love triangle, right? It's very obvious early on, despite all the circumstances and despite the fact that they're both on opposite sides, that this is the couple that will end up together. So I don't want to go into too many details though, because the second book did just come out and I'm about halfway through and my mind is muddled right now, and I don't want to accidentally spoil the first book. That would be awkward. Then I read In the Details by Julia Wolf. This is my first Julia Wolf book. 5 stars. I'm frigging obsessed with this book. I don't think YouTube likes when you curse. But this follows Jake. and Clara. I knew it was another C name. Okay, so they're both single parents, and they've been like driving. They both like motorcycles, so they've been riding their motorcycles to a dive bar and like hooking up every couple months for a year. And they actually meet like in person, and they kind of jump from this like fantasy world of only seeing each other every couple months to like an actual full-fledged, like, let's potentially try this out. Problem is Clara's been really hurt by her last relationship. I won't spoil why, because whew, what a dumpster fire. And Jake isn't sure that he's ready to like introduce somebody to his daughter, even though his daughter's a teenager. Okay, Jake, like, let's get it together. And you definitely have like a lot of back and forth between the characters. Like, Clara doesn't make some of the best decisions. Jake doesn't react the best way sometimes. But I thought it was like a really beautiful relationship, and I thought it was like, there's a couple scenes in here, and there's two that I'll talk about. So number one, I love, like, he's a master braider, like braiding hairs and stuff like that. So he braids his daughter's hair for like softball, and Clara and her daughter are over, and they want to matching braids. So like he braids all their hair to like match and stuff like that. So that was like the cutest thing on the face of the planet. And then Clara really struggles with the way her body looks like post-baby, and her ex-husband wasn't the greatest person on the face of the planet. And two, like, it's hard to see your body like change so drastically. So even with like the stretch marks and like the scar from like an obvious pregnancy, I love like how much Jake is obsessed with her and obsessed with the way that like her body shows her womanhood, and how he always like highlights those parts of her and makes commentary about it and like pays attention to it, even though like it, you know, she's like, ooh, you could not do that. He's just like, no, like, you deserve it. Like, I should be paying attention to this. Like, my man is so down bad for her. Like, this is like, I'm about to go on an A.L. Jackson and Julia Wolf binge, okay? And I'm not mad about it, because I had such a good time reading these books. And the second book in this series just came out, but obviously I'm going back, and I'm going to hop into some of the older series just because I need more Julia Wolf in my life. Then for The Good, the Bad, the Smutty, Jess and I read Lies Like Rubies Part 1 and Part 2. So this is by Spice Book Box, and it's both of them. I gave anywhere, so the first part I gave 4 stars, and the second part I haven't quite decided, but it's a 3.5, so round up probably to 4. If you would like my additional thoughts, you can definitely check out the link below. Like, it'll take you directly to the recording of this conversation. There's just some things that happened in part 2 that I felt like could have been stronger, and some like character decisions that just didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'll leave it at that thought. What airplane is flying this close to my house at 9 p.m.? Hello? All right. And then the last book, no, this isn't the last book, this last physical book I have. That Love by Jillian Dodd. I don't want to talk too much about it, because my February, I just realized my February We Read Pink on Wednesdays didn't post, but this book is featured in there. And let me sum it up for you. It is Fade to Black. Nothing wrong with that. I don't like the miscommunication, and I really kind of struggled with the back and forth. I understand they were both healing from relationships, but I didn't appreciate how they couldn't find a way to speak to each other about that. So 4 stars for this one. I read the second half of this, and I gave that one 3.5 stars because, well. And then finally, I read Tutoring the Player by Rebecca Janschak, and this follows Daisy and Jordan. And I gave this one 4 stars, and I really liked the idea of the fact that Daisy kind of had a crush on a different athlete, and then she was like, oh wait, like, Jordan's kind of cool, like, I like him, and they kind of form this nice friendship, and then they start hanging out. So it felt very like, I felt like it made sense. I really liked where it was going. I really liked their relationship. I just did not like the miscommunication at the end, because I felt like, and this is wild coming from me, right? Normally I'm like 10 toes down for the heroine. I just felt like it was a very, very gross overreaction without having a conversation with the main male character. And you can tell me that I've been having too much therapy, and you can tell me that like maybe 21, 22-year-old me probably would have reacted that way, but like that's why I've tried to improve, right? So I didn't not like the story. I didn't not like the characters. I didn't not like overall the book. I just like hated the miscommunication at the end because I felt like a simple, like I would have preferred a different style of miscommunication or a different style of third act breakup. I just didn't like it. It was for that reason. And yeah. So anyways, I still enjoy the book. Like I still would recommend it. I'm still going to continue on with the series because I'm interested to see kind of where all the other characters end up. But yeah, so those are the books that I read in the month of February. So while it is kind of a small list, it is a robust list. And I feel like we got some new authors in here, some new favorites. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So that's all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment, subscribe if you're not already subscribed because I love new book besties. And I'll catch you in the next video, whichever one that is. All right, bye.